So I'm gonna go over sports shooting. And if you guys haven't already watched it, like I said, watch the video I did on sports editing workflow because it will go over how to caption your photos. Um, Basically, if you have a good workflow, you can knock out your photos quick. The thing with sports is, I mean, as a photojournalist, you're always on deadline, but sports, you're definitely on a deadline. When I cover like football, for example, a game starts at 7, my photos need to be in by 9. That means I can't even shoot the whole game. Normally at halftime, I'm knocking out all my photos. And back when I was slower, I would only have about 5 minutes left of the fourth quarter. So I could get the last couple plays and get either jubilation or dejection after the game was over. Um, Basketball is the same thing. Like I need to get my photos in before the game is over. So you need to have good workflow because if you don't, it's going to take you a lot of time. Like I know how much time I need to be able to edit my photos and caption them. So I push it. I will shoot as long as I can and just make sure that I have the given amount of time that I know that I need. But that's just from practice. So let me open up the slideshow. Okay. All right. And how do I make this big? Do I go to play? Okay, there we go. Can you guys see the whole screen? Okay. All right. So first thing when it comes to sports, you need to know the sport. You need to do research. If you're going out there covering a sport that you don't know, like, will you know to look at second base because there's going to be a double play? Do you know what your players are like, what they like to do? If you know the sport, you know where you need to look. Is it going to be, is the next play going to be a running play or are they going to pass it? Because that will depend on where you need to stand. So prior knowledge of the sport, and if you're not knowledgeable, Google it. Like a couple weeks ago, I shot volleyball for the first time. And my thing is, I want to shoot any and everything. So when I get hired, I know what to look for. I can give them good shots. So I never played volleyball, so I don't know the terms. So how am I going to caption it? So I had to Google and look up terms and make sure that I knew kind of what was going on, where the players would be, that kind of thing. Like the fact that it's like they play in sets. Like I had to look up all these things because that's information that needs to be in the caption. I can't just say hits a ball. Like, no, I don't write my captions like that. So I want to be detailed in everything I do. My mentor always told me your captions should be have so much information that if you get hit by a bus, your editor doesn't have to worry. You have everything in there. It is so much easier to delete stuff out of your captions than be like, hey, Patrick, who's that person in that photo? What's their title? What are they doing? What's the context of this photo? Because after the fact, more than likely, you will not remember. You know what I mean? And one thing I'll say for photos in general is always taking notes. Like for a protest, um, I'm taking well over 1,000 photos. I need to have detailed notes. So, like for myself, I could say like a camouflage, like Sarah Nevis wears a camouflage 49ers hat. Chrissy has, it looks like maybe a tie-dye shirt, glasses, long hair. I'm getting as much detail as possible. So when I go through my 1,000 photos, I'm not going to be like, wait a minute, this is a really good photo. Because I've done this before where I had a really nice photo, but I can't use it because my rule is if you do not have a name, don't give me that photo. You know, like of course there's exceptions. Like if a fireman is putting out a fire, like you're not gonna be like, hey sir, stop putting out that fire. What's your name? You know, there's exceptions, but for the most part, like I will not accept a photo if it doesn't have a name in it. So going back, just know your sport, do research beforehand, start watching sports. Start watching, okay, so when it's the fourth down, are they going to run it or are they going to throw it? So you know where to stand. In baseball, if there's runners on first and third, where should you look for the photo? Like, know your sport and know your players because sports isn't just action. There's going to be emotion. And like once you start knowing your players, like there was players that I knew would always steal bases. There was players that I knew always would celebrate after they did something good. So I always knew to look to them because they were going to give me a good shot. So know your players. Always arrive early. As a photojournalist, I have a tendency to arrive an hour early to whatever I have to shoot. 30 minutes, I start getting anxiety because I don't feel like I have enough time because I want to get there. I want to check out the lighting. I want to check out backgrounds because I've taken football photos before, showed my own mentor, first of all, hold on. I want to see this. I'm pushing the wrong mouse. Okay, if I can find it. Of course, it's not showing me my mouse. There we go. Okay, real quick, I'm gonna take a step back. I want to know who here is with Sac City. Raise your hand so I can see you. Sac City. Only one person? Jenkins, aren't you Sac City? That's it? Just the two of you? Okay, just curious.
Yep.
So Randy, my mentor, he, like, I remember one time I had a football photo and I loved it. It was great to me. He was like, yeah, but do you see that porta potty in the background? It's like, no, I was paying attention to what I was focusing on, him getting hit by the person tackling him. He's like, yeah, pay attention to your backgrounds. You know, don't be so focused on the action that you're not looking behind you. So that's one reason why you go early, because you want to scope out your backgrounds. You want to see if there's garbage cans or porta potties or good lighting from one side as opposed to another. Are you going to get glare from this side? So you always go early and scope out your environment. Same with photography. Like, to me, if you can shoot sports, you can shoot anything. Like, you literally can shoot anything. Because with sports, you don't get a redo. You can't be like, hey, hit that guy again. Because in photojournalism, you can't influence. You are supposed to be a fly on the wall. You are not the news. You are supposed to be incognito. You know what I mean? So that's why I love sports. You either get it or you don't. And so you arrive early, check out your backgrounds, see where you need to shoot from, because you may see, oh, the way the light hits this, I want to try to get a player in this light. Lighting is always key. You want to, light is like when you get nice lighting, nice shadows, it can really make a difference between a photo with flat lighting. So you're always checking out your lighting, checking out your backgrounds, always finding out where you can shoot from, because there's so many rules with sports. Like, football has different rules, basketball will have different rules, baseball will have different rules. So you always check with like the PIO or the person who's in charge of media and find out where you can shoot from. Now, in general, I go where I want when I'm shooting just photojournalistic photos. Until you tell me I can't go there, I'm going there. But with sports, it's a totally different thing. There are rules and you will get kicked out. Like with football, it's the 25-yard line to the end zone, along the end zone on the other side, but 25-yard line. If you go past that 25-yard line and start mixing with the team, you're going to get kicked out. Your credentials will get pulled and you will be booted from the game. So it's not like a joke. Like, you have to know your where you can and can't shoot from. So that's always key. Whenever I go somewhere, I always check. And especially now with COVID, because there's a lot more restrictions, find out. Like with Sac City, like, you can pretty much go anywhere, which I loved. But with COVID, it'll be a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like, when I was at Sac City, I could get in the dugouts. You're not going to have access to the dugouts anymore. You're not going to be that close to the players. So just always find out beforehand where you can and can't go, because you don't want to be blacklisted and not be allowed access to those sports anymore. I guess I'll do that. Settings, very, very key with sports. You will never shoot in automatic. If I catch you shooting in automatic, I'm not going to want you shooting sports anymore. Like, no, I'd rather you mess up. Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay. So Chrissy Martinez just asked, who do you ask at the game, or do you just look it up online on where to stand?
Thank you. Yeah, because I can't see the chat at all while I'm sharing. Okay, yeah. So for sports, for Sac City, you can shoot anywhere. The only sport you need permission from, well, again, it may be different now with COVID, so you would definitely need to check with Randy because he would know. Football is the only one that you needed like permission. You would have to go to the athletic director, and this is Sac City, Chrissy, Sac City Community College. You would have to go through the athletic director to get permission, because you have to have a separate pass. Which I keep all my passes. So this was like the pass that they would give you for Sac City to be on the football line. If you didn't have that, AD is kicking you out. Sac State, you have to check with the PIO. There are 3 different PIOs for all the sports. So one PIO will handle like this group of sports. So you need to know which PIO is handling the sport, and you have to email them ahead of time because you will be on a media list to have access. So the PIO is the one, as soon as I get there, I just check with them, like, just in case something has changed. are just like, hey, where am I allowed to go? And you need to know those regulations. So your PIO is your person, your point of contact. So settings, again, no automatic. Do not, like, you can get away with that sometimes with other stuff and get lucky. Sports, do not do automatic. For the love of God, don't do it. Manual. You're going to shoot manual the whole time. I personally don't like aperture priority or shutter speed priority, but that's me. I like to control my photo. I want to control how my photo is going to look and what I'm forcing you to look at, because your job as a photojournalist is I'm forcing the viewer to look at what I want them to look at. If I'm doing automatic, the camera's deciding what you're going to look at. So shutter speed, always 1/500th or faster. And I don't like using 1/500th because you'll still get motion blur. The reason, the faster it stops the motion, but if it's slow, you'll still get like motion blur in the hands. So the only time I ever use 500, if it's like a crappy high school field and it's dark as hell, and I just have to because I need that extra light. Because the slower the shutter speed, that means it stays open longer and it lets in more light. The faster, it opens and closes a lot faster. So it's not letting in as much light. So you're gonna have a darker photo. Mind you, I speak fast. So if you guys have questions or need me to repeat myself, go ahead. Aperture, which is also your f-stop, which is the width. And I'm gonna do this real quick. So, damn it, I can't see. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like this. Let's just do this. Okay, so this is your shutter speed. 500, you start to stop motion. And when you go faster, it's even crisper. Your f-stop or your aperture is the opening of your photo. The way I think of it, the smaller the photo, less is in focus. The bigger the number, I'm sorry, the smaller the number, less is in focus. The bigger the number, more is in focus. So like you could use like a f32 or f16 or f22 for a landscape because you want everything in the photo in focus. But like usually 2.8 is usually the f-stop, the lowest for sports lenses. And you see that the person's in focus, the background is blurred. One of my favorite critiques Randy ever gave me, I shot football and not knowing, like understanding, because I still was learning photography and not understanding what the settings did. I was trying to adjust for the light. And I think I used like F11, never in sports. And he was like, Sarah, I see what the people in the background are eating. It's like, okay, gotcha. We'll never do that again because you don't want to. You don't want that distraction. When you take sports, I want you to look at the player, not pay attention to what the people in the stands are eating. You know what I mean? So you always shoot wide open. When I say wide open, that means these low numbers. That's because like your aperture is more open as opposed to this little pinprick. So the smaller the number, less is in focus. And that's what you want when it comes to sports. So aperture wide open, the widest your lens will go, that's what you shoot at. So when I say the widest, the smallest number your lens will go. Most of you are going to start off with kit lenses. So did I. And they're usually 3.5 to 5.6. So I think I had like a Tamron. It might have been a 7200 or something like that. It was 200, but at 200 went to 5.6. So 5.6 would be the smallest that I would shoot at because that's the smallest that lens would go. Whatever your lens will go to the smallest f-stop number, that's what you shoot at. So you're always going to adjust your shutter speed and your aperture first. Those are your keys when it comes to sports. Then you adjust your ISO to accommodate for whatever settings you have here to give you the lighting, the exposure that you want. So shutter speed and aperture always first because I know what I want. I'm always going to want 500 or faster. I'm always going to want on my lenses 2.8. Then I can adjust my ISO depending on the lighting of the location I'm at. You're going to have it on continuous autofocus because you want it to stay with the person. And you don't, I like back button autofocus. You don't have to necessarily do that. Some people just will do it with the shutter button, and that's fine, whatever you're comfortable with. And have it on multiple shots because you want to just shoot through the motion, because to get that decisive moment, you have to shoot a little bit before, like football, a little bit before the tackle, and after the tackle, you shoot through the action, and you're going to follow them the whole time. And that's why you need that continuous autofocus. And again, this is showing that. And this, Chrissy, this shows you the ISO. So at 100, which most cameras will be at 100, you see it's a clean. As you go up, it starts getting noisy. That's what they call it. So it's not as crisp. You see how the people don't look, the lines don't look as crisp. Photo. Kind of the same with like Patrick was saying with photojournalism. Again, if you can shoot sports, you can shoot anything. Like I got really good at shooting protests because I knew how to shoot sports. I knew where to look. Like again, it's all anticipation. If you know the game, you know where you need to look. So for photo, you always want ball, face, conflict. Always. Do not give me a photo that I can't see the ball, I can't see the face, or they're just dribbling up the court like by themselves. I mean, that could be cool for like max preps or like a portrait, but not for like sports action because there's no, like if someone's on defense on them, okay, now we have something. We have conflict between the offense and the defense. You know, just a person dribbling up the court by themselves, like that doesn't tell me anything. Angles. So with sports, you shoot as low as you can get, as low. Like the only time I really ever see photographers shoot standing up is when they have the big guys, the 400, 500, 600 millimeter lens. Those are huge. Otherwise, you're going to shoot low. Hold on real quick. Sorry, my daughter was like making weird noises and it was distracting me. Okay, so you're gonna shoot as low as you can get. What this does is it brings the horizon from being in their midsection. When you stand up, horizons are in the midsection. So it brings it down to like their calf area and makes them look taller. It makes them look gigantic and like heroic. And it cleans up your background. So that's like the key. I can tell the photo when I look at it, if they're standing or down, and between the two, it's a huge difference. Now, of course, sometimes, especially with COVID, sometimes you have to shoot up higher. They're not going to let you on the baseline. Like I know when I shoot at UOP, I have to shoot from at least 6 rows up, but I don't like that angle. So I go up to the second floor and just shoot down at them. So sometimes you won't have an option. Or sometimes you're shooting higher for a creative look, and that's fine. But the thing with sports is, Randy always says, CYA, cover your, it's recorded, so I'm not going to cuss. So you want to get those shots out of the way first before you start being creative. And I'm going to go into those shots in a second. Crop for impact. Crop for impact. I can tell you right now, even to this day, and I've been shooting sports now for about 2 years, I still feel like I have a good crop. And I'll show Randy, be like, yeah, cropping tighter. Like, damn it, I thought I had it. You know, like get rid of negative space. If it does not add to your photo, get rid of it. Sports is the one section where, yes, horizontal photos are better for online because vertical photos push the article down and makes you have to scroll. Sports is the exception. You will have the weirdest shaped photos. Like photojournalists hate square photos, but sometimes with sports, you're going to have a square photo. Sometimes you're going to, more than likely, you're going to have a vertical photo. Even though when you shoot it, you're shooting in landscape, you're shooting horizontal. Always, 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 always. The only time you'll ever do this, again, is for a creative way. Sometimes with sports, and not sports, with basketball, sometimes you'll do vertical, but for the most part, I always shoot horizontal. Do not turn your camera. But with cropping, sometimes it will turn it vertical, and that's fine. Always zoom in. One thing with football, when I first started, I was zoomed out because I didn't want to miss the play. I don't want to miss what's going on around the guy. No, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Like if your photo's not good enough, you're not close enough. Patrick.
So just to really make sure too, cropping is only cool for sports. Like if it's news photography or anything like that, you can't be cropping. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Well, and with, let me add to that, because cropping, the part you can get in trouble with photojournalism, if it changes the meaning of your photo.
Yes.
crop.
Yeah.
You can still crop with photojournalism, but if it changes the meaning of your photo, it is unethical. There's
Mhm.
a photo that I think of that Randy showed me with Obama, and he was kneeling, like he was leaning down with like an oil in the water, the oil rig things.
Mhm.
It looked like he was like sad because of what was going on, but in actuality, he was leaning down to listen to a woman that was much shorter than him. But the photographer
Mhm.
cropped her out, and it changed the whole meaning of the photo. And mind you, he got fired. He never worked in photojournalism again, and he became a wedding photographer. So
Yeah.
you cropping is okay. It's just you can't change the meaning of the photo. Even with sports, like you can't crop out someone that's it's instrumental to the photo. But if there's negative space, like the bleachers, and it's not helping your photo, you get rid of it. And I'm going to show you some examples in that. Always straight.
Um,
Go ahead.
Chrissy had something to add, or ask. Might be silly, but can I crop on a Zoom photo to get Zoom buttons and stuff out of it?
Zoom buttons. Oh, like a
Yeah.
Zoom
So
For
photo.
the Zoom photo
Yeah,
shoot, like you just see me and stuff. I didn't know if I could crop that out.
yeah, that's fine.
Mhm.
Always straighten your horizons. In my sports editing workflow, I show you how to do that in Camera Raw. As much as possible, you want to try to keep your camera straight, but for the most part, you're hand holding. The only time I ever use a monopod is if I have a very heavy lens or a baseball, because I'm standing the whole time. Otherwise, football, basketball, swimming, all that, I'm hand holding. I'm hand holding my camera, so I'm moving. So more than likely my horizons aren't straight. So I need to do it in post, and that's okay, because you don't want to have like I one time, like the first time I shot wrestling, all my horizons were cockeyed, and I didn't even realize it until someone pointed it out to me. So pay attention to that. And the straightening tool in Camera Raw, sometimes it has a hard time straightening sometimes in gyms, because especially like at Sac City, there was lines all in the background. So it would like, it didn't know how to straighten them. So sometimes you have to do it manually, but for the most part, it's actually very helpful. Why am I not? Oh, there we go. Oh, too many captions. So for sports, you photograph the scoreboard between every single play. I don't care what sport it is. That scoreboard tells you information. For basketball, it tells you if it's a 2-pointer or 3-pointer. Football, it tells me how many yards they ran. It tells me what quarter they are. You always need to say the quarter, the half, whatever it is in your caption, and that tells me that. Also, for most sports, Sac City and Sac State, when you go to their sports page, like the Hornets is hornetsports.com, Sac City, was it SECpanthers.com? It was something like that. But if you go to the game, you go to schedule, you go to box score, it shows you all the stats. And then right next to box score, there's play by play. And using your scoreboard, you could say in the fourth quarter at 3:44, I want to get some more information. So I go into the play by play, and it'll tell me so and so ran so many yards. It gives you all that information. That's really helpful to have more context in your captions. And but if you don't have the scoreboard, you can't do it. And photojournalism and sports, if you have to say, I think this happened, you don't put it in your caption. You never think, you never guess. If you don't know it, don't put it in there. With sports, you want it like you're shooting through the play. Most of the time, you can't see jersey numbers when in the midst of the action. So after the play, you always get a photo of the back of the jersey, so that way you can say, Sarah Nevis or Sacramento State junior guard Sarah Nevis drove to the basket with Ohio State Patrick Posnack on defense. So you're always going to name both players. I got stuck. So you're always going to name the person with the ball and the person on defense. You can have multiple other people in the photo in defense or offense, but the main people who are doing it is who you're going to name. You can use voice memos. I did this especially in the beginning, and I'll do it for football, because if I want to say what the flag was for, I put it in video mode, do a recording quick, say, flag for offsides on 22, and then take it off, because I do the voice memo right after I do the photo. So again, I can put that extra information in my caption. So that's very helpful to do. Oh, you want to state whether it was an attempt or made. Sarah Nevis attempted a layup in the second quarter. Sarah Nevis made a layup. And again, your scoreboard is going to tell that. So when you're going through your captionings, you're going to flip before and after your photo, looking at your scoreboards to see what happened in that play. And like I said, name the quarter and the half. So this was actually one of my first, it was my first football game. I love this photo. I was like, he's in focus. It's great. Randy's like, yeah, it looks like the Heisman Trophy. And I can't see his face. It's like, oh, okay. All right. Again, baseball conflict. I can see the ball. That's the only thing I got in this photo. There's no conflict because the guys are getting cut out and I can't see his face. So that's not usable. But I also just put, because again, I used the Tamron kit lens, and these were my settings, and that's my caption. Let me move this over so you guys can actually see it. So that wasn't a good photo. Again, first football game. There's a little bit of motion here. My shutter speed was too slow. Some sports like baseball, I got to use a really fast shutter speed because they move so fast. The ball moves so fast. I want to cut it. Like I want to stop that motion. So I like to stay about 1500 or faster. And again, it just depends. You'll find your sweet spot with certain sports, like what shutter speed that you like. See, they're not quite in focus. The focus almost looks like it's right about here. So it's back here. Again, no face. But you see right here, you can't really see the jersey numbers. This is why, again, after the play, you wait till they get up and take a photo of their jersey numbers. Now, this is what my sports photos look like. You see my shutter speed is a lot higher. I stay at 2.8. If I adjust it at all, F4, and that's only just because if it's bright or if I'm trying to go for a different look, but I keep it at 2.8. At 2.8, there's a very narrow field to where if your stuff is out of focus. If I don't have it focused on the right spot, the photo's not usable because now everything's out of focus. So 2.8, 1/2000, ISO 100, because it was very bright. Again, this is what I turned in. I loved it. I liked how he was looking at the play and how everyone's watching. I was like, cool. I got a critique. I always, still to this day, I get critiques on my photos. I want to get better. This photojournalism and period, sports photojournalism, it doesn't matter, is a job to be constantly not happy with your work. Every single time you get done, you're constantly disappointed. That's the word I was looking for. Because every time you're done, you're like, oh, I should have did this. Oh, I should have did this setting. Oh, I should have did this angle. So this was the crop that I was told I should have turned in. Because this guy is distracting. I don't need that ref in there. Is he adding to it? He's not adding to my photo. I'm like, makes sense once you say it, but sometimes when you're doing your own photos, you're so emotionally attached to them. You're like, this is I love this photo. And they're like, no, that's the better photo. It's clean. Bring me into that action. Especially with sports, your eyes shouldn't be bouncing around. I should be able to look right away and see where the ball is. I should be able to tell right away what's going on in that photo. This does that. Your eye bounces around a little bit. Again, this is at UOP, so I'm shooting from the second floor, and F4 just because I put an extender on my lens to get a little more length, because that's the lowest my lens will do with that extender. 1-800, 3200, just because it's pretty good lights in there, but gyms are always a lot darker. But again, you see ball, face, and they're trying to catch up to him. So you have ball, face conflict, always. And again, if you look at this photo, it's like a square. And I probably could even cut it off a little bit more, but I didn't want it to be too narrow. So I just gave him a little bit of breathing room. So again, you're going to have weird shapes, and that's okay. Again, this was a player that I knew. I knew he was going to steal. So I knew to look at second because I knew every time he gets on first, he's going to steal second. If not third, if not home, because he's done it. So I made sure I stayed with sports. If any kind of movement, but especially sports, if you have to turn your camera, you're too late. You are too late. You will not get that photo and it will not be in focus. So I had with baseball in particular, you have your camera focused on like on first or like on second, but you watch the batter every single time, every single batter. Keep your camera pointed where you want it, but you're watching the batter. You wait till you hear that crack, see where the ball goes, then you take the photo, because the worst thing will be for everyone on the field to look at you. That means you're about to get hit with a foul ball. So baseball, you're always watching the batter. I mean, but that's the only one where you have to look away, where you're not looking through your camera, but you're always looking through your camera. Keep both your eyes open. It helps with your being able to see everything better. But always have your camera ready, but like, and you shoot through it. But like, I was ready for this one just because, like I said, I knew he was going to steal. And you can see baseball 1600. The only time I will ever use any kind of setting that's not manual, like at Sac City for baseball and football, the time of the games, a lot of times it'd be half sunlight, half in shadow. So if I'm shooting the batters, which would be in shadow, and I go to shoot them on base, they're going to be blown out. So that was the only time that I would use like auto ISO. But as soon as it was all shadow or all sun, then I would take it off of auto ISO and do it myself, because I wouldn't want it to throw it up so high or so low, you know, just not have the settings right. Again, I like to control my settings, but that's the only one that not in manual that I will use. And that's only when I have very contrasty. Like I said, the football field, half of it would be in sun, half of it would be in shade. And you don't want to have an underexposed or overexposed photo, because you can only do so much. Like if it's blown out and there's no information in the whites, like you can't do anything. So photos in general, as well as sports, you always include 3 things. Give me a scene setting photo. Give me a person photo, like an action, close up. Give me a detail photo. Because think of it like, even with Patrick, if you were covering an assignment like the mural one, if you took 10 photos of her standing in front of the mural, he can only use 1. But if you take a scene setting, a close-up of her, and a detail shot, like maybe a detail of her painting the mural, whatever, or holding the paints, he could use all 3 of those photos as opposed to just 1 of your photos. Tell the whole story. So I asked Jose if I could use some of his photos, and he told me I could. He's someone you should follow. He is an amazing photographer, amazing. And he puts his captions on every single one of his things. So if I ever get stuck, like sometimes, like, especially when I was starting off with football, I didn't want to say so-and-so runs the ball 5 yards. So-and-so runs the ball 7 yards. So-and-so runs the ball. I wanted to have a little variety in my captions. So I would look at his captions to get ideas on different ways, different wording of how to write captions. So this is the scene setting. So he's shooting the game and he's showing all these empty stands, because that's what it looks like now. Again, to me, this is not negative space. This tells a story. If your photo doesn't tell a story, get rid of that negative space. But this is showing that there's no fans in the seats. So that's a good thing. This is a person. You're getting action. The focus is clearly on him. You have the conflict, ball, face, conflict. Perfect. And again, you have your caption. Your detail shot. You don't always have to show the face, the person. You can just show a detail of what's going on. Make your viewers feel like they were at your event by your photos. When I first started, I would only strictly shoot action. I'm like, that's what we're doing, right? No, you need to tell a story. Make them feel like they were there by showing the scene. Show what it looks like. You know, show the action. Show that. Like when there's crowds, get those crowd reactions. So again, tell the whole story. Sports features. So again, it's not just action. There's emotion with sports. So whenever you hear the crowd or the team cheer or yell, there's a photo. But I can guarantee you, by the time you turn to the sidelines to get the team reacting, you're too late. Again, that's knowing your team, knowing the sport. So usually the last quarter or half, depending on what sport it is, your bench and your sideline is going to show a lot more emotion. So you'll know, like, fourth quarter of a football game, the sideline is going to start showing a lot more emotion, whether cheering or showing dejection, and you'll know to look for them. With basketball, whenever someone dunks, I know immediately to turn and look at the bench, because I know they're going to get up and be like, and show me something. They're going to give me a photo. Okay, so this was the NCAA water polo championships at UOP. And after they lost, I got this photo. This is the photo I turned in. I loved it. I was like, yeah, like this is like one of my favorite photos. Again, I got critiqued. That's a better crop. Again, you see how skinny this is? Like most online places, they're gonna be like, no, I want a horizontal. No, sports, you get rid of what's not needed. Because my friend was like, yeah, I don't need to see his crotch. And I don't like all the poles and stuff, they're distracting. You can still see that he's, you know, trying to console him and this guy's consoling him, but it's him. That's what you need to look at. This one, you're kind of looking around, like you see it, but then your eyes wander. Your job is not to make eyes wander. Your job is to show people what you want them to see. Again, look for emotion. Don't be afraid to get in people's face. If you cry around me, I'm getting that photo. Like I will get in your face and take it. So they lost I think they were in the finals. Yeah. And they lost the game and he's hugging his mom. So, you know, like I'm looking for that after a game. I'm looking for jubilation or dejection. If I can get both in the same photo, that's key because that tells the story. Like a friend of mine got a photo after a NCAA like final, and like was someone jumping in the air because they just won as someone's walking off the court with their head down. That is like beautiful because if you can tell the full story in one photo, like it's clear that someone won and someone lost in that photo. Those are things that you look for. And study people's work. I look at Jose's work all the time and look for ideas. I'll look at his photo and like this, I'm like, I'm going to look for that photo. Whenever I'm at a baseball field, I want that photo. You know, so just study people's work to get ideas, and it's okay to emulate them. Shoot through the play. You don't want to stop shooting when you feel the play is over, because if you do, sometimes you miss the best parts. You'll miss the emotion shots. Because I've done that so many times where you go to put your camera down, you're done. Like you missed it. And you'll miss shots like this. This is probably one of my favorite shots. She hit a double and then flexed on him. And like, I thought it was cool. And Randy was like, no. He was like, that's good. He was like, because very rarely, for one, do you see women doing stuff like that. And this one actually won me with JACC for Sac City. I think 2 or 3 different times I won awards on this one for sports feature. So you need to look for stuff like that. Shoot through the play. Because if I would have stopped when she got safe on second, I would have not got that photo. And again, I knew her. Like I knew to keep my eye on her. She was that one person that she would always give me a sports feature. Always. She would show out when she did something good. Again, that's knowing your players. This is one of my favorite ones. Okay, so again, knowing your players. So Jose had this photo. Klay Thompson, I believe, scored the winning basket, but he knew not to focus on Klay because he knew Klay would not show emotion, but Steph Curry will show out for his teammates. So he knew once Klay made that shot, like he knew to keep his eye on Steph Curry, and he got this shot. This isn't even Steph making the winning shot. It was Klay. But again, it's knowing your players. And with sports features, sometimes it's a gamble because he was focused on him. What if he missed a shot like from, you know, Klay doing something? But again, sometimes it's a gamble and it wins out because this is an amazing photo. He had another photo that I wasn't able to find quick enough where it was at a football game. I think it must have been a Christian one because there was nuns there. And he has this photo of nuns jumping in the air at a football game celebrating. He missed the action shot and literally was just waiting for them to react. And it's a gamble. Like, what if they didn't react? Then he missed the game-winning play. But he felt he had enough CYA shots that he could make that gamble and miss that action shot to get that sports feature. So what are you trying to tell? You want to be intentional with your storytelling. Think about what you're trying to convey to your audience and how are all the parts in the photo telling a story and what is that story? For example, did I not go down? Okay. So again, I like this photo. He was praying before the game. And this is the one like where I think it actually was him. Yeah, it was him. He was the one that was that was crying after the game. So he's praying before the game. And instead of having these empty bleachers, I saw the color guard. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna put him in the put the color guard in frame. When I had my photos critique, they were like, what are you trying to tell here? It's like, I wasn't doing anything. I didn't want an empty background. And they're like, it would have been better to have empty bleachers behind him than that, because what is this trying to tell people? And I never thought of that when I made this photo. Don't take photos. That's what I learned. My wording, and when I say don't take it, taking is just like not thinking about it. You're just taking it. When you make a photo, you're intentional about everything you put into your photo. You're making it. You're looking at how the light is playing. You're looking at angles. You're looking at what's in your backgrounds, in your foreground. Make photos intentionally. Like I love this one. This one, again, Jose, again, he included this negative space to show you they're playing in empty stadiums. He's intentional about that. That tells a story. So, and that is it for that. Okay, so I want to go over some CYA shots real quick because I know it's getting close. If anyone needs to leave, totally understand. So for baseball, because most of the time, especially for new like school organizations, you only need like 1 or 2 photos. So as long as you have your CYA, you're good. Once you start shooting for like newspapers, you need more than that. Like when I shoot for the Record, I have to turn in 10 photos every single time. So baseball, you want to line up with first and the pitcher. So you're in a direct line with them if you're able to get there. You want to get, because people are always going to try to lead off on first and to steal second. So you want to get when the pitcher throws the ball back to first. So you'll have pitcher, ball, person sliding into first in that one shot. And that's like your CYA. That's like, that happens every baseball game. So you'll be able to get that shot. All right.
Bye, guys.
Yep. Basketball. At the net, someone going up to it. Like you can focus on the net and just wait for the person to come in frame. I like to follow the person, which can be a risk because sometimes they can be out of focus. Okay. And so that's your CYA for basketball, is someone going up to the basket. For football, what you want to do is line up a couple yards behind the quarterback. So that way when they turn to like hand off the ball to so when they go to hand off the ball, you have the quarterback's face, ball, and the person they're handing off to in frame. Soccer, when the ball goes out of bounds, you hightail it to where they're going to be at, where they're going to throw the ball in, because more than likely when they throw the ball in, they're going to try to head the ball. And that way you can get them like both jumping in the air, trying to head it. Swimming, you basically want to be in front, like, hold on. Yeah, so like basically whoever you're focused on, like I usually get to the end of the pool and have them coming at me. So like with butterfly, when they come out of you see the water, you see their head coming out. So you have a head-on shot. With the exception of freestyle, they always turn their head to the side. So you'll want to be on the side of the pool. With tennis, you don't want to get the ball on the racket. You want like a little bit of spacing. So it's like right before or right after they hit it. And that's all. Like that could be like, some people like ball on bat, some people don't. So again, it's your style of shooting. Golf, obviously don't photograph in the middle of their swing. Track, the fastest runners are in the middle lanes, so you're going to want to focus on them. And then again, just once you get your CYAs, play around and try to figure things out. Figure out what lens you like, what angle you like, because sometimes like they're still to this day like I'll like, oh, I'm going to try this angle, and I'm like, it's not really doing anything for me. And that's fine. Like it's hit and miss, and it's figuring out what works for you, what doesn't, what you like. With sports, you want to rate if you can, because like, especially when I was starting out, I would take easily 1,000 photos. Maybe I take a little bit less now, but it depends on how many cameras I have too. Like if I have 2 cameras, 1,000, 1,500, easy. If I have an hour to edit, I don't have an hour to like go through all my photos. So what I do is when I'm shooting, in the back of my camera, I can rate it. I'll rate it like 1 star. So that way I know at the end of it, when I'm going to edit, I know that those 1 stars are something to look at. Maybe it won't be the perfect one, but at least I know around that 1 star I can look at. And that saves you a lot of time. But again, don't chimp, which means don't be in the back of your camera doing this. I've done this looking through my photos, and the ball gets stolen. They come and dunk it right in my face. And I'm looking in the back of my camera as opposed to having it up. So you just do it real quick, like rate 1 and then keep your camera up. You're watching the game through the back of your camera. You should never have the camera down watching the game, like ever. Your camera's always to your face. So rate. That will save you a lot of time. Because most of the time, like, you're lucky if you have an hour to edit after a game. So